gender-based violence. So we try to use this period to demystify all things that, you know, people use as excuses for violating the rights of women, girls, men, and boys. And we use also these 16 days to highlight also gaps that are there in terms of the services that people who have experienced violence should be getting. So you are right, we need to demystify what we call gender-based violence. And to prepare, I just prepared a few examples so that people understand. We pull apart this term called gender-based violence, and then we know exactly what we are talking about.
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Yes, thank you. So gender-based violence, we can simply define as those harmful acts that are directed at a person because of their gender. So it also happens because there is abuse of power. So the aggressor or the person perpetrating that violence has power, some sort of power over their victim. So it can be physical power, it can be economic power, or it can be even, you know, supervisor, supervisee kind of power. So that power is being abused by the person holding it. And then it is based on unequal gender relations and unequal gender inequality. So allow me then to just give a few examples, if I may. So we do have physical violence. So many people tend to believe that when we talk of gender-based violence, it is all about the physical. But I want to just say that there are many more forms. So it's important during these 16 days that we know all the forms so that you know if what you're experiencing or what you are perpetrating on another person is actually gender-based violence. So we have physical, and this is the battery. These are the blows that we hear about. These are punches that we hear about. These are the kicks, the slaps, and even murder. You know, people end up dying at the hands of people who are supposed to be protecting them or loving them. So all those are physical forms of violence. Then we have sexual violence. So this is where the violence that happens is of a sexual nature, and these include rape. They include rape and sexual abuse of children. They include child marriage. So all those people who gather to marry off children, they are actually committing acts of sexual violence against children. It also constitutes sexual harassment in the workplace or in public. It also constitutes forced abortion. We know some people are forced to terminate pregnancies against their will. So that is a form of sexual violence. And then there is also intimate partner sexual violence. So I'll pause here because we know that in our culture, we normally say she's my wife or she's my girlfriend, or I paid bride price for her, or it is in my culture. So this is acceptable between a man and a woman. And you actually find people, they see somebody who is being battered or who is being abused, and they turn a blind eye, you know, they say that is a private matter. So during the 16 days of activism, we are calling on everybody to say there is nothing normal about abuses, about human rights violations, and there is nothing domestic about being butchered and being raped. So everyone needs to stop condoning such acts and take action to make sure we protect victims and that we protect also, ensure that we get them help. So I was just giving the forms of violence, right? So I'll quickly go on to, we also have in our culture harmful traditional practices. So we've justified this for a long time because we say it is our culture, but sometimes our culture runs against norms of human rights and norms of women's rights.
Okay,
so
perhaps, Anna, perhaps we can come back to that so that I also give Philip a chance to come in at this point. Anna has laid out specific instances that relate to gender-based violence. A lot of people view this as a woman's problem, you know. Do you agree, Philip? Is it a woman's problem?
Thank you so much, Olive. Not quite. When gender-based violence is meted on an individual, it does not only affect that individual, but it affects the wider society. For instance, if it is a woman that is violated, assuming that, like yourself, you are a news anchor, what happens is that you will not be able to come here to even air the news in the first place, and that affects the wider society. If it is a teacher, if it is a doctor, it affects everybody else. So violence does not only affect women, but it also affects men in the society. And in as far as we are concerned, this is why, as an organization, we focus more on really bringing men on board, because violence does affect them in ways that sometimes they may not understand. But if they look keenly and analyze the situations upon which violence is meted on an individual, then they'll realize there's importance for them also to address those issues. And I like what Anna pointed out, that violence, gender-based violence, as the word defines it, does not only mean that it is about women, but it's also about men. It's a form and type of violence that is meted on men and women based on due to unequal power relations that exist between them and the perpetrators of such violence. And for this reason, we all must rise to just curb issues of gender-based violence.
Okay. Ambassador, some of what Anna raised when she was giving us illustrations of what could count as a gender-based violence included such things as early marriage. And in Kenya, with the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw an escalation in domestic violence. We saw girls being married off. Now that means they will not be going back to school. Is this sort of scenario limited to Kenya, or is this happening across the globe?
Well, good evening, and thank you so much for inviting me. No, Olive, in fact, gender-based violence increases during every emergency. We've seen that before, whether it's an economic crisis or a conflict or disease outbreak. So the COVID-19 pandemic is no exception. And we've seen actually that globally 243 million girls and women have been subjected to sexual and physical violence perpetrated by intimate partners in the previous 12 months. So this is by no means a Kenyan problem, it's a global problem. And it's been exacerbated by the fact that many of the women who are survivors of this phenomenon are in a lockdown with their abusers in their homes and cut off from normal services. So that exacerbates the problem. And we also see that women in vulnerable positions are really at an even higher risk of being exposed to this kind of problem. And at the same time, the domestic shelters or violence shelters are reaching their capacity in many places, or they are being used for the COVID-19 pandemic for other health purposes. So there are a lot of problems around the globe, and in my own country we've seen in fact a 12% rise in the early beginning of this year of domestic violence. So this is a problem that affects us all. And if one positive thing, maybe if one can talk about a positive thing in such a case, is that this pandemic has given more momentum to this issue. We are talking more about it, and it gives us a possibility to raise awareness and also to maybe raise funds to fight it. And I want to say here also that Finland is partnering with Kenya to see whether we could strengthen the prevention and response to gender-based violence here in Kenya. We are looking at a 3-year program, working with 3 different counties to improve the access and quality of service for survivors of gender-based violence. And we're going to work in Bungoma, Samburu and Kilifi. We're going to work with healthcare personnel. We're going to work also with police and other authorities who are involved in trying to help the survivors and to address their situation. So it will be an interesting and good cooperation. I'm sure Finland is investing 5 million euros in this, and the Kenyan government is also on board. In addition to this, we are working together with UN Women very closely and supporting them around the world, also here in Kenya. And I know that a lot of their response here this year has been targeted to COVID-19 issues. So also through that way, we are trying to help and to chip in and to partner with Kenya.
Okay. Anna, you talked about, sorry, the ambassador mentioned the UN Women, of which you are the country manager. Tell us what the situation has been as far as COVID and how it's impacted gender-based violence. I talked about the hotline that the Ministry of Gender launched, and also I know I cut you short as far as the traditional forms of gender-based violence are, so perhaps you could cover that briefly and then get into the COVID impact on GBV in the country.
Thank you very much, Olive. So yes, as I was saying, we do have those cultural forms of violence, negative, harmful traditional practices that include child marriage, female genital mutilation or cutting, and abuse of widows, including disinheritance of widows, property grabbing from widows or forcing them to get married against their will. So those are some of the forms of harmful traditional practices. But before I go to COVID, let me also just mention a silent form of violence, which is psychological or emotional violence, because I think many of us go through this, but we don't recognize that it is a form of violence, and that you can also get assistance or support if you are experiencing that. So the ambassador mentioned that during COVID-19, we've seen an increase in gender-based violence. So what we're saying is that gender-based violence did not start happening because of COVID-19. It went up because of COVID-19. But we've been talking about gender-based violence all along and trying to raise or flash the torch on this silent pandemic, which is killing so many people, but going unnoticed. So the psychological violence, Olive, talks about is that form where you find somebody is isolated. They are forced to cut all ties with the external world. So they are forced to not talk to their family. They are forced not to contact anybody. They are just locked up and isolated, completely cut off from any form of contact with the external world. You also have what the young people are now calling these days gaslighting, or messing with someone's head. So this is where you're constantly being harassed in the home, or in any other kind of relationship. You are constantly being called names, constantly being told you are useless, you are worthless, what did I see in you? Or constantly being threatened. Your life is constantly being threatened. We had some people during COVID-19 telling us that their partners will sleep with maybe a gun under the pillow or a big panga under the pillow, and being threatened that they can end their lives at any time, just like that. So this gaslighting, you start even believing that you are worthless, that you are useless, or you become so timid and scared for your life all the time. So it is a form of violence, and if you are going through that, you also need to know there is help. There is the 1195 hotline that you mentioned. So call and talk to somebody, because we've seen during COVID-19 that some people have committed suicide because they cannot deal with the stress or the pressure or the mental health challenges that they are experiencing. So now back to your question on what the situation is during COVID-19. As Ambassador rightly said, so we are not peculiar as Kenya. We actually experienced this as many other countries in the world during COVID-19, the pandemic that we are experiencing right now. So to just give you a perspective or a context, during the months of March, April, May, and June up to July, we actually saw an increase from an average of 80 cases or 86 cases that were being reported per month through the hotline. These cases went up all the way to an average of 1,000 cases per month. So this just tells you...
From 86?
Yes, from
86 to 1,000.
Exactly.
That is
exactly
crazy. And I do want us to take a break, Anna, but when we come back, as you continue to give us that perspective, perhaps our panelists will also weigh in on, the lockdown. Did it also restrict access to justice for those who've experienced GBV, gender-based violence? We'll be back on the other side of this break.
together with you. I even gifted you a magnificent house. Rosa, it's the thought that counts. Please help me.
When it comes to fever, you need to be both. Panadol Baby and Infant starts to work on fever in 15 minutes and is gentle on the tummy. Panadol Baby and Infant, tough on fever, gentle on your child.
Do your gums hurt? Yeah. Does your toothpaste contain sage, eucalyptus, myrrh, chamomile? All that in one toothpaste? Yes, try Colgate Herbal. Colgate Herbal contains nature's best herbs and Colgate's fluoride technology to give you strong teeth and healthy gums. Ah, Colgate Herbal. Let's go. Colgate Herbal for strong teeth and healthy gums naturally.
Set some time aside to relax and awaken your senses with Nivea Body Oil in Lotion. Available in cherry blossom, vanilla and rose scents. Carve out some me time with Nivea Body Oil in Lotion. Awaken your senses.
Union Pay cards are widely accepted at POS and ATM nationwide. Union Pay cards can also be widely used for e-commerce payments. These and many more local and international merchants accept Union Pay. Hey Kenya! It's time to earn while you spend with your Union Pay card. Yes, you get 10% back on every purchase, rewarding you as you swipe. Union Pay, your way.
But on those days, I compromise it all. Either my skin is sensitive or my back's against the wall.
You can have it all.
What?
Always brings it all.
Okay.
Get it all with new Always 2-in-1. Feather-like softness overall, even on the wings, girl. And rapid dry channels.
Let me see you make a move, be it all, do it all, have it all.
Always 2-in-1 feathery soft.
When the world changed, it made us go back to the simple joys and love the little things even more. Like serving up your best, eating together, and sharing more. Now, we'll take nothing for granted and always remember to taste the simple joys. Enjoy the magic of Christmas with Coca-Cola.
I help women find independence by training them in fish farming. It's tough on my back, joints, and can cause headaches. Panadol Extra relieves multiple types of pain. Panadol Extra, now with new Optizorb technology to fight multiple tough pains with 3 times more pain-relieving medicine in the first 30 minutes when you need it most. Seeing them support themselves makes any pain worth it. If symptoms persist, seek medical advice.
Karibu, Mom. Let me take care of your hands.
Kwa sababu ni muhimu kutunza mikono ya mama, Omo ina chembe-chembe asili ya kutunza mikono ya mama anapofua. Omo, nguvu ya kutoa madoa sugu, kutunza mikono.
Fact finder from the BBC.
A victim of revenge porn in Zimbabwe opens up about fighting shame and betrayal.
He sends me a message and he says, "Oh, if you don't come back, you know I have those pictures."
Campaigns marred by misinformation as the UK gears up for a fierce election contest.
And online all the time, but how did the internet start 50 years ago?
What comes to your mind when you think of the perfect home for your family? Is it the beauty, the comfort, the security, the convenience, or even the affordability? Victory Gardens offers exactly that and much more. Call us today on 0790 300 300.
Sweetheart, kwani lori imekata break? Bra, when you gotta go with Neptune.
Welcome back. We're discussing, or rather we are commemorating the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And before we took the break, Anna, you were telling us what the situation in the country is as far as the impact COVID-19 has had on GBV in the country. And you mentioned that in between, was it from March to June, if I'm not mistaken, to July, you talked about an escalation of from 86 cases to over 1,000 cases.
Yes, so I was saying our baseline that we were using is February, before the pandemic reached Kenya. So the national hotline or the national helpline used to record about 86 cases. Or in the month of February, it recorded only 86 cases. Now, from March and then April, May, June, up to now, it's recording an average of 1,000 cases per month, from an average of 86 cases per month. So that just shows the increase that the previous speakers also already mentioned that we saw going up during COVID-19.
Okay.
And what we've been hearing is that people have been saying now they are spending much more time at home because of the restrictions, right? They are spending much more time at home with the people that are abusing them, with their abusers, with their partners, with their husbands, and locked up with very little access to the external world or very little access to services like police, like judiciary, and so on, or even to friends and family. So, and then we've also been told that because of, this failure to provide for families and just not knowing what's going to happen with the pandemic, like am I going to get infected? What's going to happen with the job? And so on. All those have been stressors that if caused the escalation of these abuses that we are talking about.
Okay. Phil, in your experience, has this economic uncertainty been one of the contributing factors to this escalation in violence in homes?
Yes, indeed, Olive, because when we talk about gender-based violence, the root causes are gender inequality, abuse of power, and disrespect for human rights. But when it comes to issues of contributing factors, we have so many of them and myriads of those factors.
Could we be making excuses for abusers?
The problem that we're having as a country, and this is something that again is global, is that most of the time, instead of blaming the perpetrators and holding them accountable, we normally blame the survivors of such violence. So you realize that somebody has been abused, but instead of blaming the person who did the abuse, we start asking what happened to you, what did you do to them, what kind of dress were you wearing, where were you, why didn't you cook? Yet the perpetrator, we leave them to go scot-free, and that in itself is a problem. So it's high time that what we need to do is really to hold perpetrators accountable, give survivors support that they need, and at the same time, we must also engage in bystander action, because a lot of these things are happening in communities and in places where people know, but people don't talk about them, because they say, in as far as I'm not the one who is abusing another person, then I don't need to speak about it. And somebody will even hear somebody being abused or battered, and they say, it's none of my business. But remember, when it happens, there's a way that it also affects you, because it has a ripple effect to you as an individual. So violence thrives on our silence. So we need to raise our voices whenever we see it happen. We need also to report them, because even the cases that Anna is talking about in terms of the spike in the number of GBV cases that we experienced. Remember, on the 2nd of April this year, the Chief Justice reported that the courts were handling 38.5% of GBV cases. That's quite a lot. And that was just like 2 weeks after the first case of COVID was announced in the country. So how about now? It's very telling that the escalation of these, because of the lockdown, the restrictions of movement, and the fact that survivors cannot also access certain services, including even going to the police to report. Because even if I remember, we've had situations where survivors are telling us that when I went to report the case, I was told right now the police are handling certain issues that are beyond just the cases of sexual violence. And this is why we normally talk about at the service points. be it at the police station, at the health center, the health facilities. Because again, at the health facilities, again, you've heard that when people go there, instead of handling these kind of cases and providing services for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, they focus more on COVID cases. And therefore, we are in catch-22. But like I said, we must also distinguish between contributing factors and the root causes of violence. And at the heart of it, we must always endeavor to support and give the support to survivors, so that in terms of the problems that they have, and most of the times the problem that survivors have is either issues of acceptability, in the sense that you've been violated, and then when you tell other people, they start questioning, what did you do? So they don't believe you, the believability is not there. Then issues of access, in terms of access to services, and issues of availability of those services, and whether or not you can access and get yourself there. And lastly, in terms of affordability, this is with regards to whether somebody is able to pay for the services, because some of them are quite expensive to be able to to get the services realize the services that you need.
Ambassador, I'd like you to come in at this point. These victims of abuse are not only locked in with their abusers, but in being locked in, their access to justice is hampered. You've mentioned programs you're supporting in Kilifi and Samburu. Why is it important to make it easier for victims of abuse to access justice?
Well, I think one of the problems is that very often authorities are not very well coordinated in their response. The one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. And that, of course, hampers the possibilities of the survivors to get help. So it's really important to, first of all, raise the awareness of the authorities about this problem, and the complexity of the problem involving sometimes very difficult situations, domestic situations, and then secondly, giving the different authorities the possibility to coordinate their activities better, and thus being able then to answer to the needs in a better way, more effective way.
Okay, so better coordination as far as the authorities are concerned. I want us to take a break to look at what we are preparing for you at 9 p.m. with the news highlights. But when we come back, we'll speak to Anna on how we can all proactively change the narrative. The ambassador has told us the authorities need to better coordinate. We've heard from Philip, who tells us that we need to stop shaming the victims and asking them what they did wrong. So when we come back from this break, we'll be looking at which way forward.
Got together beautifully at GMC Place. Enjoy our succulent meals in a serene setting with a varied choice of fun games for the little ones. Cup it up with a cuppa or a cocktail, all available to your taste. Discover the joy of a warm pool by diving into the Blue Oasis heated pool. Or at GMC Place, the fun never ends. Make your reservation today on 0701 560 560.
When they flip and roll and start to crawl away, tape diapers can be hard to put on. Then it's time for all-round fit Pampers pants. Easy to pull on even when they're moving around for a great fit and up to 12 hours of dryness. And easy to remove. Just tear the sides, lift away, roll up the pants, and you're all done. Now available in size 6. Pampers. Love, sleep, and play.
Asante sana. Sasa, ni nini kingine ambacho unaweza kumfanyia msichana wetu?
Kila kitu. Hata kufua nguo na Ariel mpya. Unaniamini sasa?
Ariel huondoa madoa sugu kwa mwosho mmoja. Ijaribu leo uamini.
Man, you got to have game. When it's all sweat, pressure and anxiety, yet that's just half time. Stay cool and in the game with Imperial Leather for Men range. Wear luxury. A little luxury goes a long way.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku. Pata offers zote mahali pamoja ili uongeze zaidi, utume SMS zaidi na ubrowse zaidi.
Usijali,
Tuma namba ya kila supplier kwa hiyo soko. Nitajua vile nitaongea na kila mmoja wao. Mwaka sasa. Unajua leo ndio siku yangu ya kutafutia hii mmea yangu bei nzuri sokoni. Na kuna mtu nimepewa namba yake nimpigie nimuelezee pole pole. Ndio unajua na mama wengi sana huko sokoni. Ni ofa gani mzuri leo?
Very good. Piga *444# utunukiwe Credo double.
Sio kwangu, rudi.
Kitisuru Amani Gardens apartments located near the International School of Kenya are almost complete. American kitchen with featured cabinets, solar panels, bedrooms with an ensuite master bathroom, swimming pool, gym, backup generator and borehole, among other features. Call us. Our Kenyan number is +254 733 926 935. In the USA, call +1 205 948 7797. Kitisuru Amani Gardens Apartments, where elegance and luxury meet.
When the world changed, it made us go back to the simple joys and love the little things even more. Like serving up your best, eating together, and sharing more. Now, we'll take nothing for granted and always remember to taste the simple joys.
Enjoy the magic of Christmas with Coca-Cola.
Go Ahead is believing to make each day a brighter day. It is our faith to start all over again. Go Ahead is never giving up in the face of adversity. To go ahead, now that is the Kenyan spirit.
This is NTV.
Tonight, patients ordered out, hospitals shut.
Services have been disrupted.
Alipa wauguzi warudi kazi kwa sababu hawa ndio tegemeo letu hii dunia.
Health sector in crisis and not even the unborn are spared.
Nikajitoa nikajipeleka labor ward peke yangu. Sasa ndio at least nione kama nitapush ndio mtoto atoke. Lakini bahati mbaya akatoka kama ameaga.
And Catholic bishop's verdict on government's handling of health crisis.
We regret that the tension between the government and the doctors will not be resolved through arm twisting from both parties.
And tempers flare with Parliament making last-ditch efforts to appease angry doctors.
Chair, before I proceed, I think you all know we are in mourning, and as a fraternity, we are hurt. And with due respect, we are demanding an apology from Senator Ledama Olekina for parading a payslip of our deceased colleague.
Mr. Chairman, my intentions were definitely not to hurt anybody. And if they were taken, and I believe they were taken as if they were intended to hurt.
Plus, opening new frontiers for regional trade and cooperation.
A clear demonstration of commitment for enhanced trade facilitation on the part of both Ethiopia and Kenya. And I therefore urge the business community from both sides to capitalize on this potential, taking advantage of the infrastructure being developed to enhance trade and investment.
How President Kenyatta and Ethiopia Prime Minister plan to breathe new life into Lapset. Also ahead, the public land a judge grabbed, costing him his job.
We really need to make the commitment and act.
EACC recovers the 700 million shillings public property and new pledges in the anti-graft war.
I commend the decision these courts have made, affirming the risk of retaining persons in office who have been charged with corruption and other economic crimes.
I wish I could have soft and glowing skin.
New Geisha Black Soap with activated charcoal to give you soft and glowing skin. New Geisha Black Soap and New Geisha Moringa.
Fun and food go together beautifully at GMC Place. Enjoy our succulent meals in a serene setting with a varied choice of fun games for the little ones. Cup it up with a cuppa or a cocktail, all available to your taste. Discover the joy of a warm pool by diving into the Blue Oasis heated pool. Or at GMC Place, the fun never ends. Make your reservation today on 0701 560 560.
In Kenya, 1 in 2 children suffer from cavities. Brushing with Pepsodent removes bacteria and repairs tiny holes before they become cavities. Because every smile matters.
Close Up Deep Action with antibacterial formula and deep cleaning gel keeps your teeth clean and protected. Close Up Deep Action. Enjoy long-lasting fresh breath and more.
Maji mdosi wangu ametupa simu yangu ndani ya maji.
Mdosi wako kwa sawa. Venye Nkirota ameniambia ajui na akimpigia simu ashiki. Hi, guy, what the?
For the women who deserve more, Moped is now in Kenya and more than 40 countries. With its nylon-free surface, new Moped has unique softness and up to 100% protection. Your skin will love it.
How powerful is the healing power of Vaseline? We applied Vaseline jelly to one leaf, the other we left alone. After just a few days, the difference is visible. Nothing locks in moisture better to keep skin restored. That's the healing power of Vaseline.
I have to admit, I didn't like Sukuma Wiki when I was growing up, but now I've created a way to make Sukuma Wiki tastier and meatier. I simply add 2 Royco beef cubes and the end result is a rich, meaty flavor. And today, I have brought along my harshest food critics for a taste test. My kids.
More, please!
Royco beef cubes. Add 2 small cubes for a big, meaty taste.
By the way, Carl, Mother will be visiting us this weekend.
Believe me, I'm counting the minutes. Eureka!
Red Bull gives you wings.
To help fight the spread of coronavirus, learn Lifebuoy's hand washing habits. Wash hands with soap or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Together, let's help fight the spread of coronavirus in Kenya.
Go Ahead is believing to make each day a brighter day. The confidence to create opportunity. Going ahead is our courage to do something new. To go ahead. Now, that is the Kenyan spirit.
Sweetheart, kwani lori imekata break? Bra, when you gotta go with Neptune.
Thank you so very much for staying with us. We're discussing the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Ambassador, I'd like to bring you in. Is part of the problem stereotypes? There are those who say there cannot be rape within marriage. And is it important to get men involved in this conversation as we think of the way forward?
I think that's a very important issue that you raise, actually.
And the positive role of men can be very important in countering this problem and this vice, if you will. But it requires that we have targeted, well thought through messages also to the men regarding gender stereotypes, regarding a positive kind of masculinity, and talking about the need to participate in caregiving in the home, things like this. So we have to have a tailored message to men, and we also have to reach them in some of the more poorer areas or challenge areas where it might not be easy to reach them. For instance, through social media, we have to use channels like radio so that we are sure that the message is coming through. And also, I think one thing to note is that we need positive role models. We need men who speak up for these issues. And I want to very much underline what my colleagues earlier talked about, everybody having the responsibility to speak up when they encounter this problem. And this, of course, is also very much applies to men in positions of power or men who can provide positive role models. And I want to, for instance, mention, I think it's worth noting that President Kenyatta did a wonderful thing when he spoke up against female genital mutilation and committed to ending this vice by 2022 in Kenya. These are the kind of initiatives that will put focus on the problem of gender-based violence. And of course, we have the very well-known and good campaign, He for She, globally, which is still going on. And we need more of these kind of campaigns, really, to raise the awareness among men about this problem and how they can be a positive part of solving it.
All right. Anna, perhaps you could come in at this point as well. We know what we are campaigning against now. What are we now campaigning for? How do we change this narrative?
Thank you very much, Olive. So from where we stand, I would like to pick it up from where Ambassador left off in terms of having conversations that are tailored with men so that we start challenging some of those norms and standards that we have normalized for a long time, but which are actually not normal. And so to me, or from where we stand as UN Women, we need to invest a lot more in terms of prevention, and more prevention. And how do we do this? If I may also just refer to what President Kenyatta mentioned a few months ago, where because government was so alarmed by the increased rates of GBV during COVID, he directed that there be a committee, an interagency committee that would be set up to conduct research into why are we going through all of this and what should therefore be done. So understanding the problem and then having tailored solutions, but tailored solutions that are not just localized so that it's small little projects here and there or pockets of projects, but a nationwide funded campaign where partners come together with government putting its resources on the table and development partners putting resources on the table to drive a nationwide campaign that addresses these social norms that are negative, that condone violence against women, that condone violence against children, that condone all forms of gender-based violence. And really having conversations with men to say, it does not make you a real man to beat a woman, contrary to what we've been taught perhaps growing up. Also challenging parents to say you are raising children. What values are you imparting to your children? And ensuring that we are raising our children, both boys and girls, to shun violence and to be respectful of women's human rights, girls' rights, and everyone's rights, because everyone's rights matter. My last point that I would like to say what we are campaigning for is about ending impunity. So what is happening is that if you see somebody who has been accused of rape or impregnating a young girl or sexually harassing somebody or butchering his wife or failing even to provide for his family when he can do so, and then you see them roaming freely and they've been reported to police and no action has been taken, it is actually sending a message to other perpetrators that it is okay, you know, that even though the arm of the law is very long, it will not reach me. So it will encourage others to perpetrate, it will encourage others to abuse, and it will also demotivate the survivors from reporting. Yeah. So what we need to do is to end impunity by ensuring that when cases happen, action is swiftly taken and justice is seen to be done for the survivors, and that we rehabilitate also those offenders so that when they come back, they do not continue to perpetrate violence, but that they talk to other people that this is not the right way to go.
All right.
Thank you.
Phil, I'll give you the last word on this subject, and you've been set up nicely by Anna there in terms of access to justice, how to improve access to justice.
Thank you so much, Olive. Our constitution in Article 22, Sub-Article 1 provides for anybody to institute a claim if they feel that their rights have been infringed, denied, or violated. And that is also supported by Article 48 on access to justice, where it says that the state shall ensure access to justice by everybody, and if there's any fee that is supposed to be paid, it shall be minimal, such that it will not impede access to justice. And lastly, Article 159 says very clearly that justice should not be delayed, and further to that, it says that justice must be dispensed without undue regard to procedural technicalities. And by this it means, like, remember, there were days when somebody, a perpetrator will do something, say in Nairobi, and then they run to Busia or something, and they are caught there. Somebody says, no, we cannot handle this case because this person committed the offense in Nairobi. So that's no longer there based on the Article 159. So those procedural technicalities are no longer there. So access to justice is something that we must also campaign and advocate for on and on again, because again, what we are talking about here is that in everything that we do, I know Anna has really affirmed the need for prevention, but we also must also take care of prevention, protection, and response, because in instances where it has happened, then survivors, we must also approach survivors through what is called survivor-centered approach, where we ensure that their dignity is preserved, in as far as even Article 28 of the Constitution says that everybody has inherent dignity, and that dignity to be respected and preserved, and also to make sure that their decisions and their choices are also taken care of. We must validate the fact that whatever happened to the survivors was not their choice, and that it was not, they did nothing wrong for somebody to violate them. That's something that we must do. And as a society, we must get to a point where we no longer accept there's no social acceptability of violence in our midst, and we must all stamp this out. If you allow me, one last word to men, is that for men, violence affects us also as men. And we must engage with men because men sustain, reproduce, and also maintain some of the social structures that also encourage insubordination and perpetuation of violence, and therefore it's important to engage with men. And
so men cannot be left out of this conversation. All right, unfortunately, I wish we had more time, but we really do need to end this conversation here. But I do not want to end without providing the national GBV helpline. That number is 1195. The Child Kenya helpline is 116, and the Feeder SMS platform is 21661. Thank you so much to my panelists, Ambassador Eric, Anna, who's a UN Women Manager in Kenya, as well as Phil Otieno from Advocacy for Social Change Kenya. Thank you so much for contributing to this discussion. The hashtag is 16 days. Let's continue the campaign.
Sensitivity pain fast with Sensodyne Rapid Action for clinically proven relief in 60 seconds. Take the good with the bad, live the life
good.